Okay. Hello, everyone. Thanks for joining my talk today at CactusCon. Uh, I'm going to talk about ransomware. Yes, unfortunately, it's still #1 threat, and still there are quite a lot of ransomware attack nowadays. And today we are going to focus on LockBIT ransomware, one of the most active ransomware gangs or ransomware as a service programs, if you prefer. So my talk is titled Nits Among Your Bits, a dive into LockBIT ransomware operations. Very soon you'll learn why it has such an interesting name. Okay, I think we're ready to start. First of all, just a few words about me. My name is Oleg Skulkin. I'm head of global DFIR team at Group IB. So we are responding to various cybersecurity incidents all around the globe. We have dedicated teams in Europe, in Middle East, in Asia, and of course in Russia. Personally, I'm doing digital forensics and incident response for 10 years already. I love intelligence-driven approach very much, so that's why I'm talking about tactics, techniques, and procedures of various threat actors very often. So my team, me, and our colleagues all around the globe can be ready to such attacks, can understand how to properly respond to such incidents, and how to build proper detections so they can detect in time and they can prevent such attacks and at least prevent gangs from ransomware deployment. I co-authored a few books. Maybe you even are aware of some of them. For example, Windows Forensic Cookbook, Practical Mobile Forensics, and of course, quite a few blog posts and various research papers. You can find it at Group IB site. And for example, if you Google my name and you add DFIR to it, you can find a lot of stuff as well. Also, currently, I'm working on a new book called Incident Response in the Age of Ransomware Attack. It's going to be released very soon. So if you're interested in such materials, you can just follow my Twitter, for example. I'm trying to collect certificates just like many fellow incident responders and security professionals. Currently, I'm holding GCFA, GCTI, and MCFE. Okay, more than enough about me. Let's keep going and start discussing our main topic, LOCKBIT. Okay, so let's start from the overview. So first of all, LOCKBIT is a ransomware as a service program. So there can be quite a few different affiliates who may just borrow ransomware from this program, and then they may use various tactics, techniques, and procedures. We'll discuss all these in details during this talk. And finally, they'll deploy ransomware. Also, as many ransomware affiliates nowadays exfiltrate data as well, LockBIT provides their own dedicated leak site, so exfiltrated data can be posted on it, and they can show it to their victims or threaten their victims. Then, if they don't pay, then they will definitely publish the whole data set they exfiltrated. So, in fact, this ransomware service program started back in 2019. First, ransomware sample detected in the wild, encrypted files, and added ABCD extension to them, but it still works, and there are still quite a few of attacks. Perform this ransomware nowadays. Usually, LOCKBIT extension is added to encrypted files, and what's more, in June 2021, we saw a new version of LOCKBIT, so-called LOCKBIT 2.0. As I already mentioned, these guys and their affiliates, of course, they focus on double extortion. So they not only deploy ransomware enterprise-wide, but they also exfiltrate data before ransomware deployment. Of course, it's not in every incident. In some incidents, they just skip it and don't exfiltrate any data. But still, in many incidents we faced and we responded to, they exfiltrated data. And they even have custom tools for data exfiltration. We'll discuss such tools later. Okay, so if we are talking about numbers, even based on information provided on their dedicated leak site, since LOCKBIT 2 release, they performed more than 300 of attacks. So quite a lot of. And of course, there are attacks. The information about those were not posted on TLS. So in reality, the number of attacks even bigger than 300. And talking about ransom demands, it can be very different, up to 50 millions. But in some cases, it can be, for example, $30,000 or $100,000. So ransom demands are different, depends on the company, and LockBIT attack really different companies, because the main idea behind it is they have different affiliates, affiliates have different capabilities, and of course, they attack different companies. Okay, let's move forward. So let's start from the initial access. And here we have the answer to the question that you may have, why this talk is called Nits among the bits. So two main initial access technique they use is compromising VPN credentials. They can buy it, they can exploit public-facing application. Everybody remember, I think, Pulse Secure and vulnerability in FortiGate that was really, really often used by LockBIT affiliates and many other ransomware as a service program affiliates. And of course, RDP. These guys perform brute force attacks, and they rely on some vulnerabilities in RDP to gain initial access. So, talking about our Nits, here is why this talk was named like this. Because during the analysis of threat actor slang, we found out that they use compromised VPN account to gain initial access to the compromised network. They call it, and they want their virtual machine to be into the network. They call it to knit into the network. So they get VPN access, they put their virtual machine with all those pen testing tools like Metasploit, Cobalt Strike, Crack Map Exec, and all that, and start their post-exploitation activities. Or they just perform a brute force attack against RDP, get the password, or acquire both RDP access or VPN access from initial access brokers, and then perform their post-exploitation activities. So quite simple, these two techniques are the most common for LockBIT ransomware. But it's not all. They are trying to expand their capabilities. And here are two messages from very popular forum that is used by various threat actors, including ransomware gangs. The forum is called xss.is. And here are two messages. So in the first message, LockBIT sub, that's the official account that is used by LockBIT ransomware as a service program runner. He asked if anybody can provide him the contacts of the owner of TrickBot. And the second message, he posts about that he's still looking for contacts of TrickBot creators. So what does it mean? LockBIT wants to expand its capabilities and to expand its affiliate capabilities for initial access. So they already have experience with exploiting public-facing applications. They already have experience with brute forcing RDP. They have experience with using compromised VPN accounts to gain initial access. But there are other ways, for example, spear phishing with malicious attachments to infect victims with bots like QBot, TrickBot, IcedID, and all that. And for example, another competitor to be the most active group is Conti, and this group is using TrickBot and Bazaar Loader and QBot and IcedID, and so LOCKBIT wants its affiliates to have similar capabilities. So most likely in the nearest future, we'll see that even more diverse initial access techniques are used by this threat actor, including spear phishing emails, including delivery of TrickBot, Bazaar Loader, and all that. Okay, once the threat actors got access to the compromised network via VPN, it's one thing. They can use their own virtual machines with various tools, scan for vulnerabilities, for example. We'll discuss it later. But let's say they got to the network using RDP brute force, and potentially they already have some elevated credentials, because very common when they're talking about such attacks, then ransomware affiliates attack public-facing RDP servers. They may get, for example, administrator account that already have local administrator privileges. So they can use quite a lot of tools for post-exploitation already, because they have their feet on the land, they have access to at least one server, and maybe that's kind of terminal server, and even guys with domain admin accounts may usually hang on these. Or, for example, this initially accessed valid account, that's administrator account, then the network may have the same password for local administrator account and the same account name for the whole network, so they can start moving laterally immediately. But still, many networks and many servers, they have at least some security controls implemented and at least some security products installed. So in most cases, to drop more tools for post-exploitation, for example, to dump credentials, to start scanning network, to start Active Directory reconnaissance, they need to disable such tools. So if we're talking about LOCKBIT affiliates, they very often use various rootkit detection tools. So originally, these tools were aimed at defending the host or finding abnormal or malicious activity. But in the hands of threat actors, such tools can be used to bypass defenses, to evade defenses. So if we're talking about LOCKBIT, quite common tools are the following. So first of all, Huron HRS-WOT, then Protest Hacker, and PC Hunter. Some of these tools, for example, Protest Hacker and PC Hunter, are quite common for various groups, for example, especially those who are focused on RDP brute force, like Dharma, like Phobos, and all that. If we are talking about Huron HRS-WOT, it's quite uncommon tools with Asian origin. But again, if we are focusing on underground forums analysis, we may notice that the person behind LOCKBIT, account LOCKBIT sub, in some thread, he posted that now he's living in China. So maybe due to this fact, arsenal of their affiliates includes some tools that are usually used in China or other Asian countries. Okay, let's move forward. Of course, anti-rootkit tools are not the only tools that are used for defense evasion. Just like many other ransomware as a service program affiliates, LockBIT affiliates use various scripts to disable antivirus software. In some cases, it's just one-liner, like you can see on the slide. For example, to disable ESET, they use WMIC and try to uninstall it. And another example with Windows Defender. This time, threat actors attempted to use PowerShell to disable it. In other cases, there may be batch files that include quite a few antivirus software vendors. So in some cases, threat actors may use more opportunistic approach. So they not target on specific antivirus software that is installed, and they don't perform any reconnaissance. For example, with the same process hacker, they may just look through running processes to identify which antivirus software installed and try to disable this antivirus software. They just may have a batch file that tries to disable almost any possible antivirus software product. So that's another approach that may be used. So it depends on the affiliates, of course. And one more thing, apart from disabling antivirus software, threat actors may try to make incident response or forensic analysis or incident investigation more complex, because especially in our recent incident response engagement, the threat actors attempted to wipe folders with their tools. So, for example, they wanted C Windows temp to be their staging folder. There they drop all their tool set, tools for exfiltration, tools for network scanning, some parts of post-exploitation frameworks, and all that. And once they perform these activities, they just wipe the contents of this. So you won't find files. Sometimes you can recover it. Sometimes you can just extract this information from various forensic active artifacts like Mcache, Shimcache, some Windows event logs, and all that. But still, you won't find the files. Next thing, as they move laterally quite heavily, so you can usually find quite a lot of valuable information in Windows event log files, and they want to clean such logs as well. So as you can see on the slides, there are quite simple PowerShell one-liners. So first one was used by LockBit affiliates to wipe the staging folder where they stored all their toolset, and the second is to clean the event logs, because they don't want incident responders to track their activities, and they want the life of incident responders be more complicated, unfortunately. Okay, credential access. Of course, in some cases, threat actors may have access to elevated credentials immediately. For example, if they brute force local administrator account, but still they need more because they want to move laterally. That's why they need, in perfect world, they need domain admin account, or at least local admin account that has the same username and the same password on various hosts. LockBit affiliates still use Mimikatz, just like many other ransomware gangs. This tool is really easily can be really easy detected. But as we already discussed, in many cases, threat actors disable antivirus software and other security controls, so they can easily use any hacking tool for credential dumping and all that. So they use this capability and this opportunity, and still we see Mimikatz very often. They may rename it, for example, to mimi.exe for x64 or x86.exe or just 1.exe. It depends on the affiliates, but still Mimikatz is widely used. What else? They also use various tools by Nearsoft. So some examples include Internet Explorer Pass View, Router Pass View, Web Browser Pass View, Mail Pass View, and many others. So usually they just drop an archive that includes all these tools that are downloaded from the official Nearsoft website, and they run it in a very opportunistic manner. They don't know what kind of credentials can be captured. They just run everything and collect and exfiltrate all information that is collected, and then they're thinking about which passwords and which account can be used in the future during their post-exploitation routine. One more thing is just regular legitimate tools. They can transfer such tools from the C2, or they may use just built-in tools like, for example, TaskManager that can be used to dump all SaaS, or they can use ProdsDump to dump all SaaS, or they may abuse other living off the land techniques to dump it. So techniques for credential access are quite plain and quite simple, but still very effective, especially if the threat actors disabled antivirus software already. Okay, let's move forward and talk a bit about reconnaissance. Just like other threat actors that are focused on RDP access or VPN access, LockBIT affiliates use various network scanners during almost any intrusion. So very popular examples include SoftPerfect Network Scanner. I think this network scanner is the most popular network scanner among all ransomware gangs that operate nowadays. Other examples include Advanced IP Scanner, Angry IP Scanner, and Advanced Spot Scanner. So these scanners can be downloaded freely from the internet. In some cases, threat actors use built-in capabilities like web browsers to download it from the official website, especially when they're talking about RDP access. NLBrute, quite popular tool for performing brute force attack against RDP servers. Of course, it's used for obtaining the initial access, but it's not the only thing threat actors use it for. Another thing, as they already have some credentials, for example, they have administrator account or some other account, and they want to check if it's valid on other hosts in the network. So maybe they don't need to dump more credentials, and they may use already compromised account to move laterally and to deploy ransomware. So quite easy. So that's why NLBrute can be used on initially compromised host to check these accounts. Again, as they may already get some credentials, they may dump some credentials via Mimikatz, they can brute force some credentials. Again, there is another tool we observed them to use for credentials checking. This time this tool is abusing SMB, and it's very popular and called Invoke SMB Auto-Brute. So again, one more tool for testing obtained credentials. And another tool, I think anybody who's involved in penetration testing or red teaming is well aware about it. It's Bloodhound, and especially the part of it that's called SharpHound. That's used by LockBit affiliates to find relationships within an active directory environment and discover attack paths. So where they need to get to dump elevated credentials they need for proper lateral movement, data exfiltration, and of course, ransomware deployment. So as you can see, threat actors use quite a few tools. Of course, not all of these tools will be used in just one attack. It's based on various incident response engagements we had. Okay, let's move forward. Lateral movement. Once threat actors got initial access, once they got elevated accounts and and they already perform basic reconnaissance. Or in some cases, they already know quite a lot about the network. They are ready to move laterally. So first of all, they use RDP. Even if they got initial access via RDP, they can still use it to jump from one host to another. This type of access is extremely common, and many threat actors, including LockBIT affiliates, they even have batch files they can execute remotely, for example, via PSExec, to enable RDP on remote hosts, and they really love it and they use it very often. Of course, post-exploitation frameworks, Metasploit, Cobalt Strike, CrackMapExec. Very important point here regarding all this. So, of course, they use Cobalt Strike and Metasploit quite often. CrackMapExec, it's not that popular, but still we observed some incidents where the affiliates used this framework. But what's more important is mainly they focus on VPN and RDP access. So they may not use it very extensively. Instead, they may just use RDP to move laterally, and then they may choose one or two servers. There, they'll execute Cobalt Strike beacon and use it for redundant access. So, for example, this server may be even not encrypted by ransomware, and maybe incident responders or system administrators of the company, they may just skip it, thinking that threat actors didn't do anything malicious on that. And such servers with beacons, they may allow threat actors to resell access or just get back to ask for ransom again, or just to deploy ransomware again if the victim refused to pay. So that's a very important thing. Even if you don't see any evidence of Cobalt Strike usage, make sure you collected data from as much hosts as possible, and you are sure that the threat actors didn't use it. Next thing is PuTTY. Nowadays, LockBIT also provides Linux version to its affiliates, so they need to move laterally not only in Windows environment, but in many cases they need to get from Windows environment to Linux environment, and they need tools for this. So based on our experience and our incident response engagements, we observed that the threat actors use PuTTY to perform SSH connections to Linux hosts and deploy LockBIT. And of course, again, as we already talked about VPN access and that threat actors prefer to knit into the network, of course, they use various vulnerabilities, especially Eternal Blue, SMB Ghost, and Zero Logon, to move laterally once they get VPN access and once they put their pen testing virtual machine into the network. Let's talk a bit about redundant access separately a bit. So first of all, in almost any incident response engagement with LockBIT, we observed that the threat actors used legitimate remote access tools. So some trivial examples include AnyDesk, but in some cases they may use very uncommon and hardly detectable tools like Remote Desktop Plus. Again, if we are talking about networks where company use one or maybe a few RDP servers, and threat actors may, for example, create additional accounts. And if such servers are still public facing after the incident, then threat actors, especially if the victim refuses to pay, they may use such servers to get back into the network and perform post-exploitation again and deploy ransomware or exfiltrate data one more time. So RDP is one of the most common and most popular building tools that are used by various threat actors. And just like I already mentioned, Cobalt Strike, a very, very, very popular tool among any ransomware affiliates. So this is used quite often, and again, as I mentioned on the previous slide, they may execute beacon on just one server and use this beacon to get back to the network if the company started remediation process, for example, and blocked VPN accounts, blocked public-facing RDP access and all that, they still may use that small Cobalt Strike beacon on one of the servers to get back. Okay, so one of two main goals of the threat actors is data exfiltration. Threat actors use various tools. In some cases, they may use even web browser, but usually if we're talking about web browser, threat actors don't exfiltrate a lot of data using web browsers. They may exfiltrate, for example, a LSAS dump they created, or things like that. If we are talking about exfiltration of large data sets like 10 gigabytes, 100 gigabytes, that's very common for many ransomware fears to exfiltrate large data sets. They use appropriate tools. So first tool we observed was FileZilla, absolutely legitimate tool, of course configured to transfer data to attacker control server. Next tool that's very important among a lot of different threat actors, REvil, and many others, Hive, is WinSCP. LOCKBIT affiliates used as well. And the most interesting tool that is used nowadays by the threat actor is STEALBIT. It's a custom tool that's provided to LOCKBIT affiliates as part of ransomware service program. So they may use not only ransomware, but also a stealer that can automate their exfiltration activities and make life of affiliates much easier. Let's focus on it a bit. So as you already noticed, I think, LOCKBIT ransomware service program runners, they like to provide comparison tables to their potential affiliates. These tables are located on their official dedicated leak site, so both for LOCKBIT and for STEALBIT. So they claim that their ransomware is the fastest in the business and their stealer is the fastest in the business as well. Another very interesting thing they can notice on this screenshot is LOCKBIT provides other means that his affiliates or other ransomware service program affiliates use. As you can see, it's rclone, and also you can see that there are a few examples of common cloud services that are used by many ransomware as a service program affiliates. It's Yandex, it's Miga, it's Mail.ru, it's pCloud. So this piece of information are very important as well. So you can use it to focus your detection capabilities or to focus on during incident response engagement. So getting back to STEALBIT and some highlights of it. So first of all, files and folders for exfiltration may be specified by affiliates. So they can use various command line arguments that help them to choose how exactly exfiltration process will be. So of course, they can configure which files or folders, for example, system files and system folders may be skipped during exfiltration process. Also, as some organization may have good detection capabilities, affiliates may specify the amount of data to be exfiltrated over 15 seconds. So this can help them to avoid detection. And of course, just like LOCKBIT ransomware itself, STEALBIT can detect itself after exfiltration process is finished. So we already learned that affiliates tend to delete everything from their staging folders. They tend to remove Windows event log, and of course, tools that are provided by LOCKBIT RAS runner, they allow affiliates to remove these tools themselves as well. As I already mentioned, LOCKBIT have its own dedicated leak site. So here is a screenshot from the site. Usually there is some information about compromised companies, or at least they claim they compromise these companies. And there is a timer after this data that was exfiltrated. If it was exfiltrated, it will be published on the website if the victim won't pay. So quite common, many ransomware gangs have this site. And as I already mentioned, very important and interesting thing is condition for partners and contacts. As ransomware as a service programs were banned from popular hacking forums, nowadays some threat actors publish information and contacts for their potential affiliates just on their own dedicated leak site. So, ransomware deployment. Once post-exploitation is finished, they have proper credentials, backups are removed, and everything else is performed properly. Ransomware affiliates, LOCKBIT affiliates, they are ready to deploy ransomware. In some cases, the process is quite straightforward. They just jump from one host to another using RDP, copy ransomware executable, and double-click it so it will run. In other cases, they may copy executable on the target hosts and then use psexec to execute it. A very common technique used by many ransomware affiliates, not on the LOCKBIT. And one more thing that's less popular but still used is group policy modification. So this allows LOCKBIT affiliates to automatically create scheduled tasks on remote hosts that will execute a piece of ransomware. What's more important, this is a built-in capability in LOCKBIT. So even if ransomware affiliates are not very good in Active Directory configuration, they still can use this piece of ransomware. They just need to execute it on a domain controller, for example, and ransomware they will do all the job for them. So let's finish this talk with some highlights of LOCKBIT 2.0. So, of course, it removes shadow copies just like any other ransomware, using two methods, by the way, using VSS admin and using WMIC. Files are encrypted with AS 1 to 8 in CBC mode. So if you don't have access to private key, then unfortunately it's impossible to decrypt files. Ransomware may mount and encrypt data on file shares. So if there are some network shares, then if proper things are in command line with which the ransomware is executed, then network shares can be mounted and encrypted as well. As I already mentioned, it may create group policy object for self-distribution, first of all, and it's not all, because it can add other very important from protector's point of view things. For example, a batch script to stop various services and processes, both antivirus and some processes that, for example, lock the files from encryption. And it can add a group policy that will disable Windows Defender. Finally, just like STEALBIT, it may remove itself after execution. So that's it. I hope this talk was quite interesting for you, and you will use information on techniques, and procedures described in your incident response engagement and to tune your detection logic. Still, if you have any questions, I'll be online and I'll ready to answer all of them in Discord. Thank you.